So we've got 11 fashion aesthetics here and 5 tiers to rank them in, from top tier all the way to the trash tier. And I'm going to be ranking them using 3 categories, which will be how creative the aesthetic is, its functionality, and third, how timeless the aesthetic is. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so first on our list here, we've got streetwear aesthetic. Now, streetwear, I'd say, is probably the most popular type of fashion aesthetic, especially amongst younger men. And it's usually influenced by urban culture like music or celebrities. And it's pretty highly creative and can range from more like branded designer pieces you'd see on like websites like Essence, pretty much, to more, chill and casual outfits like some sweats and a hoodie or a plain t-shirt and some jeans. So it is pretty versatile when it comes to the types of materials and clothings you use. Additionally, I'd say streetwear is also pretty different when it comes to different cultures and countries. For example, streetwear in Japan is a lot more different than streetwear in America or in the West. Streetwear is fairly timeless, and I think the really iconic pieces usually end up becoming what is known as vintage fashion. So with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and put streetwear in our A tier. Let's go. Now, next on the list, we got workwear. Now, workwear aesthetic is a more functional and a rugged type of style. And that's because it's designed for people who work in manual labor, like carpenters or construction workers. So it might not be the most creative aesthetic, but I also think it's very, very stylish. And it's pretty much the perfect example of what you'd call a masculine aesthetic. The pieces in workwear are also very timeless, just due to the simple silhouette and the masculine style. So with all that being said, we're just gonna go ahead and put that in our top tier. Let's go. Now this is the first one to make it to the top tier. We're off to a good start so far. Next, we've got TECHWEAR aesthetic. Now TECHWEAR is designed for people who live in like an active lifestyle and love technology as well. So while it might not be the most creative type of aesthetic, its focus on functionality and practicality make it highly popular around people who tend to like those kind of things. Now this is a pretty interesting style to me because I think it has a lot of potential when it's just clean and simple, but when you start to add a whole lot of gadgets and pieces together, and I think that's kind of is the point, to give it a more futuristic look. When you start to do that, then it becomes kind of like cringy but overall it's a decent type of aesthetic. And if that's something you genuinely enjoy and have a love for, if you're a tech guy, then you can definitely go ahead. But I'm just gonna go ahead and put this in our C tier, unfortunately. Next, we got minimalist aesthetics. Now minimalist aesthetic, now this is a very like simple and clean aesthetic because it's focused on functionality. This is more for like a low-key type of people who don't want to attract attention that much with their outfit. So its focus is just on simple styles and clean aesthetics. Honestly, this is a pretty respectable style to me because it's a very easy on the eye type of aesthetic and it has very clean silhouettes. So it's not flashy like most other fashion aesthetics who really try to have like a statement piece or like very bold pieces. I think this is also a very timeless look because you can never go wrong with simple colors and silhouettes. So while it might not be the most creative aesthetic, its practicality and timelessness make it a B tier. Let's go. All right, next we got maximalist. Now this is pretty much the opposite of minimalist fashion, essentially, because it's characterized by like bold, vibrant colors, vibrant pieces, patterns, all types of textures. So while it is highly creative, it might not be the most practical or functional because you're wearing a whole lot of stuff and it might be hard for you to move around. This is also an interesting style recently developing, especially on the internet, because it has like eccentric, like over the top outfit combinations or outfits. The first person that pops into my mind is Wisdom K, the guy on the internet who has pretty much nailed down this type of aesthetic. Honestly, I think it's all right, but we're just gonna go ahead and slap that in our C tier. All right, next we got the soft boy aesthetic. Now, this is a pretty interesting aesthetic to me because it's relatively new type of aesthetic, and it's usually characterized by really bold pastel colors, oversized clothing, and it's a more feminine type of aesthetic, I'd say, for sure. Due to the different types of colors and types of clothing used in this aesthetic, and usually it's baggy t-shirts or dress pants and some Vans, pretty much the starter pack for this type of aesthetic. It's fairly creative, I'd say, and it's not to be confused with like the e-boy or fuckboy type of aesthetic, because this is more relaxed and more feminine. It's not really like a cocky or like, trying to be bold type of aesthetic. It's a more chill, relaxed. I say it's more towards the feminine side, and it's very colorful outfits, calm, casual. I think we're gonna put that in the C tier actually. All right, next we got avant-garde fashion. Now, this is a pretty interesting type of fashion. It's highly creative. It's pushing the boundaries of fashion pretty much. Crazy pieces, crazy concepts, and overall, it's just a whole lot of fun. But it's not very practical. Unless you're on the runway, you're not going to be rocking these most likely. So we're just gonna go ahead and slap that in our C tier. It's definitely a very cool side of fashion because of the high creativity and freedom to pretty much do whatever you want with this type of fashion. But in terms of wearing it, functionality, I'm gonna put that in our C tier, unfortunately. Next on our list, we got hype beast aesthetic. Now, hype beast is a pretty funny type of aesthetic and was mostly popular during the clout era, like a few years ago, but it's pretty much slowly died down, and thank God for that. Hypebeast fashion is mostly characterized by, high-end designer brands, really like rare items and really overpriced items, really. While it's highly creative, it may not be the most practical because most of the stuff aren't even meant to be like worn the way the hype beasts wear them. Like, they just slap all types of outfits together and think it's gonna be all right. So because most of the pieces weren't designed to be rocked the way the hype beasts usually rock them, just slapping all types of Yeezys, Bape, all shit together, like, that is not gonna work. Honestly, I'm glad this is over because this was the most cringe trend in recent fashion history, and I'm glad it's over. It's probably the worst fashion trend in recent years, and it's basically obsessing over the most overpriced clothing or designer pieces in order to gain cool points. So, with that being said, this is our first entry into the trash tier list. Right after that, we got sportswear aesthetic. Now, sportswear is pretty cool. It's designed for people who are mostly into sports, but you don't have to be necessarily to rock sportswear. So this can be things like Nike TECHWEAR, sports jerseys, anything sports related, really, any type of sports merchandise. So it's usually designed for athletes and people in an active lifestyle. And while it might not be the most creative aesthetic, I think its timelessness and just simple looks make it a very enduring and popular aesthetic for men. So with all that being said, we're gonna put sportswear in our B tier. Second to last, we got old money aesthetic. Now, this is a pretty interesting one because I think this is pretty much just a trend in recent times. I don't know where this came from, but I've been recently seeing this all over YouTube and the internet, and it's pretty much characterized by like classic traditional types of styles, essentially dressing like rich people from back in the days, or dressing like you're going to a boat party every day. I mean, it's honestly not too bad in terms of the pieces it uses. You got shit like sandals, clean button-up shirts, so it's not too bad when it comes to the actual style. But I just think it's a pretty cringe aesthetic, and it's just a funny aesthetic right now. So with all that being said, we're not gonna take it too serious. She's gonna slap that in a C tier. Last but not least, we got formal wear. Now, this is the most classic type of aesthetic for men. It's pretty much the pinnacle of menswear because this is a more formal type of clothes that you see men in like business like settings, or more serious settings. People in more serious settings tend to wear these type of clothes. It's usually reserved for much older adult men, but it's also popular among young men as well lately. So things like, you don't necessarily have to wear the whole thing. You can wear things like dress pants if you incorporate that into your style. That's a clean way to add some formal wear into your closet. So definitely, I think this is a classic and timeless aesthetic. It might not be too creative, but it's highly functional for formal occasions and things of that nature. And overall, we're going to put this straight into our top tier. Let's go. Now, that was everything. Shout out to everybody who watched the video. Let me know what you think down in the comment box below. If you agree with me, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. And with all that being said, appreciate you for tuning in, and peace out.